we don't see eye to eye on everything, but we figure out how to have healthy conversations around the hard topics, knowing I believe the best in my spouse. We're a team, and I believe in us. Like, I believe we can do hard things.
Well, we got Julie Baumgardner with us this morning, as served as director of WindShape Marriage since 2021. Nearly 40 years of experience helping marriages and families thrive. And prior to joining WindShape, you spent 20 years as the president and CEO of First Things First. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about marriage myths, and there's a lot of them out there. And
yes, there are.
I think that you walk into marriage with rosy, wonderful ideas of how everything's going to be. And then it's sometimes it's the first week. Sometimes, there's that phrase, the honeymoon's over when fill in the blank. So one of them is that healthy marriages are conflict free.
Right.
Wouldn't that be fantastic?
We're in trouble already.
Exactly.
You know what I think is really interesting about that? You say, wouldn't that be fantastic? And I would come back and say, I think that would be so sad, because if healthy marriages are conflict free, then somebody, or maybe even both people, don't actually get the opportunity to be seen and heard. Because, think about this. God created two people in his image, and he's brought them together in this marriage relationship. And he has said, the two shall become one, which doesn't mean that you don't cease to exist as a person anymore. It means, hey, I want you to figure out how to be on this journey and to see each other through the eyes of Christ. And if you are walking that road, you bring all of you that you've experienced thus far in life to this table. And so there's definitely differences. And what creates the richness, which in the time that I've been working with couples, what they say is, I want a deep, meaningful relationship. I want to be heard. I want to be valued. I want to be seen. I want to be loved, like, for who I am. Like, I want this to be a safe space. If you want that, man, you got to be willing to have some courageous conversations. And it's for sure going to mean that we don't see eye to eye on everything, but we figure out how to have healthy conversations around the hard topics, knowing I believe the best in my spouse. We're a team, and I believe in us. Like, I believe we can do hard things.
The thought that came to my mind when I read that myth was, someo's not being honest.
Or somebody's holding back.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because different personalities, I would think, just deem conflict.
Yeah. Well, I think that there are some personalities, like, I'm not at all afraid to engage in conflict. Like, I'm just like, hey, let's do it.
Right.
My husband, on the other hand, when we first got married, I could see him, like, slowly backing out of the room. Like, we're not going there, are we? I'm like, oh, yeah, let's do it.
I want to go there.
Well, and not because it's a sport, but because I just feel like, oh my gosh, if we can have this conversation, we're going to be better for it. So,
I so totally get that, because I guess you could call it a debate, but I don't see it that way. I just love a good discussion. And if I'm going to be proved wrong, that just means I've increased my knowledge. And if I get to prove him wrong, well, that's just fun.
That's true. Yeah.
So, and conflict also means eventually making up. And that's fun too.
Right.
So.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I got to know, what are some practical ways to, create intentionality and commitment within your marriage during a conflict?
That's a good one.
For one, I would say reminding yourselves as you engage in a conversation, this is an important conversation for us to have, but let's look at attacking the issue and really make sure that we're not attacking each other, even if we have different perspectives on that issue, that we're seeking to figure out, how do we deal with this issue? The other thing that I think is really important, based on experience, I have seen, we can see an issue at hand and we immediately jump to trying to solve it versus brainstorming, what are all the possibilities? What are all of the different ways that we might be able to deal with this issue? And then taking the time to pray through, not, Lord, help my spouse to get a brain and see this from the right way. But Lord, give us eyes to see and give us ears to hear. Give us discernment about what's happening here.
Yeah.
Help us to have honest discussion about how we move forward. I know, based on research, most of the time the issue is up here. What's really driving that issue is down here. And we don't ever talk about that because it's hard and it makes you vulnerable. So if you want to get to a different level in your marriage relationship, the thing with conflict is looking at the issue at hand and being honest, being willing to look underneath. What's really driving this? Why am I up in the air about this? And then brainstorming options, praying through those potential options and more. What are we not seeing that we need to see? And then agreeing together, here are some things that we're going to try. We agree together. These are the things we're going to try just to see. And then if it doesn't work, we'll try something different.
Yeah.
I really
if it
like
doesn't
that,
work, then we'll say, God, can you fix my spouse again?
Yes,
send out an SOS. I love that, and I especially because I do enjoy a conversation and really hashing something out. What I heard loud and clear from myself is jumping on it. I tend to do that. And that's when my husband starts backing out the door, like you said. And I can really take that away from myself. Well, here's another marriage myth. Happy couples do everything together. Why do I hear like Tweety birds and light music?
Things, puppies and rainbows.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If you think about COVID and the year that everybody was together 24/7, people were actually pulling their hair out. Like, oh my gosh, I need space. I need the opportunity to be alone, or I just need to go for a walk. The thing is, we aren't meant to do everything together. And I want to be really careful how we talk about this, because as individuals, you have extroverts and you have introverts. My love language is quality time. So I love spending time with my husband. His love language isn't quality time. He does not need as much time with me. That does not mean he loves me less. And so what you tell yourself about your relationship matters. Happy couples spend intentional time together, and they're careful with the time that they spend with each other. If you look at the reasons that people give for why they are experiencing distress in their marriage, it is lack of connectedness. I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. So just because you're in the same room doesn't mean you're connected. You can be very lonely and be in the same room. The myth is that if you're together all the time, then you must be happy and doing great. And that is not true. So spending time separately, doing things you may enjoy, like hiking or exercising, those kinds of things, I would tell you the red flag is when you're spending more time apart than you are together. That should be a sign to you. And the second thing is that when you are together, what is it like? Are you intentional about engaging each other? There's research that says that couples on average communicate about their relationship about 17 minutes a week.
Interesting. That's hardly anything at all.
All right.
Hardly anything at all. And so if you want to be connected, even when you have children, there's also research. The culture tells you, hey, when children come along, they should be front and center and your marriage should take a back seat.
Yep.
The truth is that marriages that are child-centered are the ones that are most at risk for distress. Marriages where you are intentional about the time you spend together, and it is intentional about, hey, how are we doing? What's the condition of your heart? What can I do for you? Am I loving you well? How do you know I cherish you? Those kinds of conversations lead to deep, intimate discussion. And when your marriage is connected like that, and you are intentional, you are creating, usually, a thriving environment at home where children have the opportunity to grow and learn and fail and pick themselves up and carry on. Yeah. So they spend more time together than apart. They're intentional about the time they spend together, and they're seeking to grow their marriage relationship, not just keep it on the same level.
Well,
that's good.
Follow-on question is, are there some things that couples should do apart from one another? Like sending my husband on his fishing trip. That's fine with me.
Right, exactly. And I love that you said that, because if you don't love fishing and he loves fishing, the opportunity to do that feeds him, it fuels him, right? And it makes him excited. So absence makes the heart grow fonder. There is tons of truth in that, backed up by research. In addition to that, we have come to this place in our culture where we expect our spouse to be our everything. You need to be my confidant. You need to be my emotional support. You need to be my sounding board. You need to be my spouse. You need to be all these things. When in reality, I mean, who can live up to that? We used to be surrounded by extended family and a friend group and all of these people that would help pour into us, be truth tellers to us, encourage us, so that our spouse didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I can't stand under all of this weight. So yes, the things that they enjoy that you don't particularly enjoy. I walk by myself early in the morning, and I also spend some time with my husband walking in the evenings. But there are definitely things that I horseback ride. My husband does not enjoy horseback riding. So that's my thing that I do for me. It's like my therapy, and it actually makes me a better person. It's the balance, though, of that. The flip side of that is, let's just say that you are a stay-at-home mom and your work all week is caring for your family in the home, and your spouse is out of the home working all week. And on Saturday, your spouse says, I'm going to go play golf all day because I just need to do that. And once again, you're left by yourself at home with the children. So I just want to be careful in saying that there is a balance here. And it takes a discussion back to that first myth about conflict and dealing with the issue. That would be an opportunity for discussion to figure out, how do both people feel fed, both relationally and individually?
That's good. The stay-at-home spouse is like, I need a break.
Yeah.
And you're going to go play golf?
Right.
Hey,
you've had adult conversation all week, and I have not.
That's what my wife says when I come home. I just need someone to talk to. And I totally get that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know, as humans, it's really easy to be critical of others. How do we instead look at our spouse through Christ's eyes and see what he sees in them instead of being critical?
Well, for one, you train your brain how to think about your spouse. And when I think about Jay and I, we are two very different people. And it would be easy for me to say, oh, look at all of these differences that were so intriguing to me when we were dating. I thought they were cute and amazing. And the fact that we were so different was wonderful. And then we got married, and I'm like, why do you have to be so different? And yet, if you look at your spouse through the eyes of Christ and you remember Christ knitted your spouse together just like he knitted you. Mm-hmm. He gave your spouse skills and giftedness and talents just like he gave you. And as a spouse, really, I see one of our roles as helping our spouse to grow, to be all that they are called to be in the image of Christ. And so that means embracing differences and leveraging them versus trying to make this person more like you. My life is richer, better. I am better because we don't get it perfect all the time. Please don't hear that. But we really do try to leverage our differences and engage with each other in a way that builds each other up versus making me feel less than because, like I don't do math like Jay does math, man. He's amazing. And I'm like, that is your strength. And I am giving it to you. And I want to engage that. So figuring out how to engage the differences and leverage them and make them work for you and training your brain. When you start thinking negatively about your spouse and you're focused on what you would say are their opportunities for growth.
I like how you put
that one away.
Yeah.
The more you go there, the more you go there.
Yeah.
And so you're literally training your brain to see all the things that are deficiencies, if you will. And so we have to stop ourselves and say, no, wait a minute. I've been given a gift here, and we all have opportunity to grow. So while I'm working on me, I'm going to encourage my spouse. And when I say encourage, I mean, I'm really praying for them to be who God has called them to be and to walk alongside them in the opportunities. My husband has been very gracious and loving in the way that he has walked alongside and encouraged me in 34 years of marriage. I'm very appreciative of that.
You know, I think that you're right on track. And I don't know if it's a book that I read or if it's just something that God helped me with. But during the pandemic that you're talking about, somehow it was this epiphany that I need to learn to love the quirks. I find annoying now that you're right. When you first met that person, you loved that part about the personality. Why does it annoy you later on? I don't quite understand. But it was like, oh, you know, these things that kind of drive me nuts about my wife, Becky, it's like, I used to love those things. Well, what changed? Can you relearn to love them again? And I think you can.
Yeah. And you know what I think is interesting, Mike, as you're talking about that is watch your spouse out in a social setting. Because when I stand back and watch Raj interact in a social setting, I see all those little things. And guess what? Everybody is responding so well to it all. And it just sort of refreshes this little fire in me to remind myself, those are the things you've always loved that you depend upon. And so kind of a little interesting situation to watch him out at a Bible study or at church and talking to everybody and having time for everybody. He lives in he doesn't let it all get to him like, I've got to, what's next, you know? So I really appreciate what you're saying about that. You know, there's another sort of related myth that you talk about, that every disagreement has to have a resolution. And for me, that's like that piece of steak my mom used to give me as a kid, that the more I chewed on it, the bigger it got. And so talk to me about that. Do we have to resolve all of our disagreements?
The answer is no. And there is actual research to back that up, that there's probably 10 or so issues that couples learn how to manage for the duration of their marriage. And that's not to say that there's dissatisfaction. It's to say that there's conversation about it throughout the duration of their marriage. And I think that there's some aspects of this that are really important to think about. For one, everybody knows the scripture that says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And I think it's important to talk about that when it comes to marriage, because there is truth to, if you are going to bed bitter at your spouse, that's dangerous. But for me, as an example, I am a very early riser. And so my bedtime is like 8:30, 9 o'clock. I mean, I kind of turn into a pumpkin, and we just have a rule in our home that we don't talk about anything complicated after 9 o'clock. And so if there is something that comes up, we will often say, that is definitely a topic of discussion. We need to have that conversation, but having it right now could probably be more dangerous to our marriage than helpful. So let's agree that we're going to have that conversation at, say, 7:30 in the morning, which is probably making some people fall out at this very moment because it's like not 7:30. But we can actually have the conversation at 7:30 and resolve it in 30 minutes. Whereas if we started having the conversation at 9, we might still be going at midnight, and I'm only half there. So I think I'm prefacing everything by saying, when you have hard conversations matters. If you're having them at your low energy times, that is not helpful to your marriage. That's important. But the second piece of it is, what are the issues? Because the top 10 list includes sex, in-laws, money, disciplining children, careers. That's usually the top 5. And again, going back to earlier in our conversation, most people, the reason that they continue the conversation over time is because they only stay up here. They don't go down and say, I'm fearful about you taking that promotion because I think you're going to be gone all the time. And I want our family to be strong. And it just feels like if you're not here, then a piece of us is missing. We don't have that conversation. I don't care about the money. I care about time. So yes, it is true that over time, we definitely have things that are conversations throughout the duration of our marriage. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with your marriage.
That's good. Actually, I heard, I hope this is maybe freeing for us all, in Ephesians, where it talks about don't let the sun go down on your wrath. I've heard that's misapplied anyway.
Yes, me too.
Yeah,
yes.
that really what that means is you can be angry. It says to be angry and sin not. In other words, there are things you should be angry about. And don't let the sun go down on that anger. It really wasn't applied towards a relationship necessarily.
Yes. Yes. And if you remind yourselves, we are on the same team.
Yeah.
I believe we can work through this.
Yep.
I love you. Let's rest and let's talk about it in the morning.
Yeah.
Very freeing.
It's funny how just a good night's rest will change everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a world of difference. Absolutely.
That'll preach.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. So when you have kids, I think this is something where we maybe get the cart in front of the horse. What comes first? The kids? Your spouse? Where do we go there?
Your spouse comes first.
Yep.
I talk with parents all the time, and I remind them of several things. One, your children are watching you. So really what you have going on in your home is Relationship University 101. Wow. And the Lord has given you an opportunity to shepherd these children and to give them an opportunity to thrive in a home where they see their parents love one another well. What does that look like? It looks like having conversations with each other. It looks like being respectful towards each other. It looks like when you are disrespectful or sarcastic in a condescending way, that you turn around and you actually apologize to each other in front of the kids.
Amen.
They actually see you say, I messed up. I went in a direction. I was mad, and I'm so sorry for that. And I'm asking you to forgive me. We're teaching them all the time. They're like little sponges. And so when you're intentional about asking the question, what do we want our children to learn? Because the other piece of this is you're raising adults. The design is that they leave the nest,
Yep.
and that you have helped them to be equipped to do that. Not that they're dependent on you to know how they feel, what they think, what their faith is, but that you're raising them in an environment where they ask questions and they're curious and they're watching you engage with each other, and they're learning how to do life, how to problem solve, how to manage money, how all it takes to run a household, all these things. If you put your children first, and you're constantly focused on them, and they don't actually see you do the dance of what being in a healthy marriage looks like. Yes, we step on each other's toes sometimes. Yes, we are unchristlike sometimes, but we come back and we make it right because we value each other. We are focused on Jesus here, and we're not perfect people. We're on a journey. So, it is marriage first and then the children. I'll never forget listening to John Medina, who wrote the book Brain Rules. He's a molecular biologist, and someone in a crowd of 1,000 people that I was sitting in said, how do I get my kid into Harvard? And he said, you want to get your kid into Harvard? The best thing you can do is go home, love your spouse well, and create a stable environment for your children to thrive. And I thought, wow.
I love that.
That sounds biblical.
That's awesome. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. So tell us a little bit about your website.
WindShape Marriage, we have a variety of retreats. We are part of a bigger foundation, the WindShape Foundation, which was started by Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, in the early 80s. Yes. And so there's WindShape Camps, WindShape Marriage, WindShape Homes, which is group homes and foster care, WindShape Teams, which is leadership development, and WindShape College Program, which was actually the first ministry that was started as part of the foundation. And WindShape Marriage seeks to serve couples to help them in whatever season of marriage they're in, to have a healthy marriage relationship, to grow closer to the Lord, closer to each other. And so we do everything from marriage prep to empty nest success. Some of them are more you listen to something and do something experiential. Others are very experiential. Our romantic adventures are out there participating in experiences, and we're actually teaching through the process of the experience. So it's quite fun. I would tell you all of our retreats are fun and engaging and worth a weekend away.
Is that because they have free Chick-fil-A?
It's interesting. Mr. Cathy he had the foresight to create this foundation completely separate from Chick-fil-A. And oh my goodness, I think if he could see us now, he would just be shaking his head at all of the amazing things that are happening as part of the foundation.
Wow, that's neat.
That's fantastic.
Yes. Didn't know the background. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if people want to go there, it's windshape.org, right?
Windshape.marriage.
Oh, .marriage.
.org.
Okay.
Yes. Or windshapemarriage.org. It'll get you there. Yes.
Oh, there it is. Marriage.windshape.org. Something like. I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find it somehow.
It'll pop up.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes. There's lots of opportunity out there.
Amen.
Really appreciate our time with you. And,
yes.
Just even in this short amount of time, so much encouragement and points of reset for us all.
Absolutely.
So it's good.
And thank you so much for that. I love the opportunity to be intentional, because it just doesn't matter how many years you've been married. it's a great reminder. Some of the things it's like, oh, I know that. I need to actually do that.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's just a good reminder for all of us.
Yeah, because we just go on autopilot. I mean, you just kind of go
Yeah.
through life, and then next thing you know, here I am. How'd I get here? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, we just get busy.
Yep.
We get busy, and so life can get in the way of that. We have great intentions, so it's just nice to be reminded, yes, that's important to me, and I want to do that differently.
Amen. That's good. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so
Hope you have a
much.
great day.
Thank you. You too.